It was not just a football match. Not to Argentina, not to England, not in 1986. 4 years earlier, soldiers had died in the cold South Atlantic, fighting over islands the British called the Falklands, and Argentina called Las Malvinas. The war was over. The graves were not. And when Argentina met England in the World Cup quarter-final, the stadium did not feel like a stadium. It felt like a wound. Then Diego Maradona rose into the air. For 1 second, the world saw a goalkeeper, a ball, and a small Argentine body flying toward history. The referee saw nothing. England saw theft. Argentina saw justice. And Maradona gave the moment a name that would never die: the hand of God. But the strangest part is this: that was only the first half of the legend. If the story had ended there, Maradona might have been remembered only as a thief with perfect timing. Instead, 4 minutes later, he did something so beautiful that even the stolen goal could not bury it. If this story pulls you into the ashes of history, stay with ashes of time. Empires burn. Stories remain. The Falklands War ended on June 14, 1982, when Argentine forces surrendered to Britain after weeks of fighting. In Argentina, defeat left more than military failure behind. It left anger, grief, and shame. Young men had been sent into a war many did not understand, under a military dictatorship already losing its grip on the country. The generals promised honor. They delivered graves. For Britain, victory became proof of strength. For Argentina, defeat became something harder to describe. It was not only the loss of territory, it was the humiliation of a country that had been told to believe in glory, then forced to count the cost. The dictatorship soon collapsed, but the wound did not disappear with the men who had opened it. By 1986, Argentina was no longer ruled by that same junta. But memory does not obey elections. Families still mourned. Veterans still carried the cold inside them. And England was not just another opponent. England was the country that had won. So when the World Cup draw placed Argentina and England on the same field in Mexico City, history walked into the tunnel with them. Diego Armando Maradona did not look like a weapon. He was short, compact, left-footed, and impossible to measure by ordinary rules. He came from Villa Fiorito, a poor neighborhood outside Buenos Aires, where football was not a hobby. It was escape. It was identity. It was a way for a child with nothing to make the world bend. By 1986, Maradona was already famous, but fame was not enough. He carried Argentina on his back with the burden of a man who knew his country needed more than goals. They needed pride. They needed proof. They needed someone small enough to represent them and dangerous enough to frighten everyone else. Maradona was not clean, not saintly, not easy to love. That was why he was believable. In a world that often asked the poor to obey, he played like obedience was an insult. He did not glide like a prince. He fought like someone who had spent his life being pushed, grabbed, doubted, and underestimated. When defenders kicked him, he rose. When the crowd roared against him, he seemed to hear music. That was the danger England faced. They were not only marking a footballer, they were marking a man who turned pressure into fuel. He was genius with mud on his boots. On June 22, 1986, more than 100,000 people filled the Estadio Azteca in Mexico City. The air was thin. The sun was heavy. The noise rolled like thunder above the pitch. Argentina wore sky blue and white. England wore white. But the colors were only the surface. Beneath them were memories of ships, flags, mothers, headlines, and soldiers who never came home. The first half was tense and careful. England watched Maradona closely because everyone knew where the danger lived. He drifted between defenders like a man who refused to stay inside the shape of the game. Every touch created a small panic. Every turn forced England to choose between patience and fear. Argentina looked for him again and again because the match already seemed to understand its main character. The ball did not simply arrive at his feet. It returned to him like a secret. But for 45 minutes, the wound stayed closed. Then the second half began, and history stopped pretending to be ordinary. In the 51st minute, Maradona moved toward the English penalty area. The ball bounced loose after a scramble, and England midfielder Steve Hodge accidentally sent it back toward his own goal. Goalkeeper Peter Shilton came out to claim it. Shilton was taller. Shilton had his hands. Maradona had timing, hunger, and something darker than courage. He jumped. His left fist rose beside his head. The ball crossed the line. For a heartbeat, there was confusion. The stadium did not know which truth to believe. Some saw a header. Some saw a hand. Some saw only the ball in the net and chose the version that hurt less. The English players protested immediately. They had seen the hand. The referee had not. The goal stood. Maradona ran away, celebrating, glancing at his teammates, urging them to follow before anyone changed the truth. Later, he would say it had been scored a little with the head of Maradona and a little with the hand of God. It was not an apology. It was a myth being born. That phrase did something extraordinary. It turned evidence into poetry. It made the crime sound ancient, almost sacred, as if the sky itself had leaned down and touched the ball. England heard mockery. Argentina heard destiny. And football received one of those moments it can never fully explain and never fully escape. For England, the goal was cheating. For Argentina, it was something more complicated. It was not justice in any legal sense. It did not bring back the dead. It did not erase defeat. But symbols do not work like courts. They work like fire. They take pain and give it a shape. To many Argentines, Maradona had humiliated the country that had humiliated them. He had beaten a taller man, a stronger nation, and a rule book that had never protected the poor. That is why the hand of God survived. Not because it was fair, because it felt like revenge. But revenge alone would not have made Maradona immortal. For that, he needed 4 more minutes. In the 55th minute, Maradona received the ball inside his own half. There was no trick from the referee now, no hidden hand, no argument that could save England. He turned away from one challenge, then another. The pitch opened. England players came at him like gates trying to close. Maradona slipped through them. One defender fell behind him. Another lost the angle. Another reached and failed. The run became impossible before it was finished. This was the answer to every accusation. No referee could give him this. No secret hand could create this path. It was body, balance, nerve, and imagination moving faster than defenders could think. For a few seconds, football stopped being a game of 11 against 11. It became one man against disbelief. He entered the penalty area with the ball still tied to his left foot. Peter Shilton came out again. This time, Maradona did not need the hand of God. He passed the goalkeeper, touched the ball into the net, and left England staring at something no protest could explain. The first goal was scandal. The second was genius. Together, they became legend. England did not collapse immediately. Gary Lineker scored late, cutting Argentina's lead to 2-1 and bringing fear back into the match. For the final minutes, Argentina had to suffer. That mattered. Myths are stronger when they are almost ruined. England pushed, Argentina defended. The clock became an enemy. Every clearance felt like a breath pulled from deep water. Then the final whistle came. Argentina had won. England was out. And Maradona stood at the center of a story larger than sport. He had not fired a weapon. He had not changed a border. He had not undone a surrender signed 4 years earlier. But he had given Argentina an image powerful enough to survive politics. That image was a small man in blue and white, running from English defenders, carrying the ball and the anger of millions. On paper, it was a World Cup quarter-final. In memory, it became a national exorcism. Argentina did not stop there. Maradona carried them past Belgium in the semi-final and into the final against West Germany. On June 29, 1986, Argentina became world champions. Maradona lifted the trophy, and for a moment he looked less like a player than a king raised from the streets. But kings made from pain do not live simple lives. The same qualities that made him unforgettable also made him dangerous to himself. He was brilliant, defiant, wounded, adored, and often out of control. The world wanted him to be a saint because his talent felt divine. He never was. That is what made the myth darker. The hand of God was not a clean miracle. It was Maradona in full. Genius and sin, beauty and deception, glory and rebellion. England never forgot the injustice. Argentina never forgot the feeling. And football never escaped the image of Maradona rising beneath Shilton, arm hidden just enough for history to hesitate. The truth is simple. It was handball. It should not have counted. To say that clearly doesn't weaken the story. It makes the story stronger. Because the power of that day is not that Maradona was innocent. He was not. The power is that the guilty moment became inseparable from one of the greatest goals ever scored. But history is not only built from what should have happened. It is built from what people remember, what they forgive, what they refuse to forgive, and what they turn into myth. That day in Mexico City, Maradona gave Argentina 2 goals. One belonged to the shadows. One belonged to the gods. Between them was a country trying to stand again. 4 years after war, Argentina did not defeat Britain, but for 90 minutes it defeated England. And sometimes, in the wounded heart of a nation, that is enough for a football match to become revenge.